worst part is over, but you're not out of the woods yet, guys. Here we're going to talk about how to come out at work. Coming out at work, depending on your circumstances and the state laws, you really don't have to come out if you're already stealth past 100% of the time and your documents are legally changed, unless you feel like you want to. So unless you're transitioning on the job, it's not something that you really have to do unless you're already like finding work and your legal transition hasn't really happened yet and you have to go through background checks and they might find your old name, or you're transitioning at your current job. You generally don't have to come out unless you really want to, because I'm of the opinion that personal life and work do not mix. When I first started out at my first job, I was 8 months on T. My documents were pretty much legally changed. I had a little trouble with my social security number, still showing my old name, even though I changed it a couple weeks before I even got this job. And a lot of people didn't question it. I was already passing 100% of the time, and I wanted to break from all this trans business. So I just kept it quiet. I basically came off as a shy, reserved person because I didn't really know what to talk about with other people. I was still pretty new in transition, and I didn't really know how to navigate spaces where most of my co-workers were primarily men, and they were like really machista, I guess I would call it in Spanish, but they were basically very hyper masculine people that I didn't really like get along with. Well, we got along. It was just really weird to interact with them, especially in a world that I was just introduced to. If you plan on transitioning on the job and you plan to keep that current job because it's like in your career or whatever reason, then yeah, you're gonna have to come out, especially if you're gonna be planning to take hormones or anything like that, and because a lot of people are gonna be talking, you're probably gonna be office gossip, and a lot of people are gonna be wondering why you sound different, why you look different, and why your legal name changed, and why you're going by different pronouns than you previously did. So it's a lot of things you have to sift through, and you don't want everybody to start making misguided attempts of like why you're doing all these things. So it's better to get it from your own mouth rather than other people speculating, because that could be a nasty work environment. However, it is very important to check your state laws, because at this current time of this video, there's only 19 states that have protections against gender identity discrimination, and even then there's probably a little more, but on the state level that only applies to public employment, that is government jobs. So in most other places, unless you're getting a government job, there is literally no gender identity discrimination protection. Only most places tend to have like against sexual orientation. So before you come out, you gotta ask yourself these questions. 1. Do you pass, and are your documents legally changed? Like I previously said, you really don't need to come out at work if you're already stealth, you already passed, and you prefer to be stealth, and you basically don't want to give yourself a hard time at work. Remember that work is basically where you get your income, and while you could socialize with your coworkers to a certain extent outside of work, I'm of the belief that work and personal life don't mix, and a lot of people don't have to share this sentiment, but that's how I personally feel about work. And so it's really up to you whether or not you want to come out. Also, you don't make yourself susceptible to being office gossip, because if you come out, you're bound to be talked about behind your back by other people. 2. What are your state laws? I cannot stress enough that you need to literally research this before you come out, because if you come out without knowing the state laws and it turns out you live in a state where there is no gender identity protection, it is legal to fire you for being transgender, but still it is at the employer's discretion. Transitioning isn't going to be easy, and in some cases, depending on where you live, it can cost you your job. I've included a link in the description below to see if your state has like those gender identity protections, but even then I would have to really ask of you to really read through these things, because you need to be prepared for what might happen, because in some cases where you live in a state that doesn't offer these protections, at least in your employment, because only government jobs have that kind of discrimination protection in some states, you're gonna have to figure out whether or not being yourself is worth the cost of losing your income. And in some cases, and I hate to say this, then you're gonna have to basically be stealth at work and basically hide all the changes and everything, or maybe put off taking medically transitioning. That's what you plan to do at the cost of like staying at your job. Or if you have a big company, you could ask to be transferred somewhere else at places that tend to have this gender identity discrimination protection, which is mostly on the west coast of the United States, like Oregon, California, Nevada, and places like that. 3, how big is your company? There are only like 2 to 3 methods on how to come out at work due to the professional nature, because you can't really come out by text message or handwritten letters. That's very unprofessional. You can't really do that in most cases. And it really depends, because if you work at a small company, there's likely the chance that they don't have a human resources department that you can go to figure out how to come out to everyone and what's the best options are. So you basically might have to talk to your managers and have them come out for you, or you could talk to each coworker individually, or just announce it to everybody that you go by this and I go by these pronouns now. I know it's going to be a little hard, but this is who I am, and I would like you guys to respect it and everything, and what you plan to do in the near future about your transition, so everybody's kind of like in the know. You don't have to tell them everything, but you basically have to lay it out for them that you will no longer go by your old name and the pronouns that used to be referred to in the past. Due to the professional nature of coming out, there's only 3 ways to properly come out at work, and I will be discussing them now. The first acceptable method, and the most common one from what I've heard, is emails. The good thing about them is they're great if you only have a small department of coworkers you work with. You can cover all the bases and people can read them multiple times. When you're directly confronting somebody, they only hear it once and they might not remember the entire details, so they can read it over and over before responding. They're great if you don't like to directly confront people, but you have to tell people, so this is a good way to do that. And in most cases, you'll most likely get an answer, because work emails is basically for you to be on top of work and on top of everything, the memorandums and everything. So basically, work emails are checked pretty often, so you won't run into this situation where it's not going to get responded to, or at least not even looked at. However, this does have some drawbacks. First one, it might get lost. Work emails tend to have their own separate database, and for one reason or another, it might get lost. And there might be some power outage, it might get lost, or it didn't get sent for one reason or another, even though in your sent box it says sent. So that might be that thing that might happen. The bad thing about this is you're open to office gossip. Other coworkers might be discussing the email they received, because I'm assuming that you sent it to everybody, so they're probably going to be discussing your transition, and in some cases not in a very nice way. The next method is talking to human resources department. This is generally applies to those that have like big companies who require to have this. So there's a HR department that you can go to if you don't want to send emails and handle coming out yourself. The good thing about this is they will know how to handle the situation if you're not sure how. You won't be alone in planning how to properly come out at work. And in some cases, they can even come out for you and be very professional about it as well. However, there's also some drawbacks. It might make coming out as more of a big deal than you originally planned. And of course, you're always open to office gossip, because when they come out for you, no matter what method you use, they're going to be talking about it. You're going to basically be the office gossip of the next couple of weeks, so you got to be prepared for that. Also, everyone at work will be notified, even the people that you didn't plan to come out to as well. So you can't really be out to some coworkers and be stealth with others. Everybody is most likely going to know about it, if not by HR, but by office gossip that's going to travel fast around the building, no doubt. The next one is direct confrontation. This is basically good with any coming out for anyone, but I generally would not do this, especially if you're not one to do this kind of thing, but it is an option. The good thing is you will be guaranteed an answer, at least some sort of response. It more or less gives the person the opportunity to show how they really feel through body language and how they're reacting. The drawbacks are they might not be respectful, probably won't get the response you hope for, and they might give you a harder time at work. Once again, it is up to your best judgment to figure out which method would be the right one to use depending on your work situation and where you live. And also, once again, I can't stress enough that you need to look up your state laws, figuring out whether or not there's gender identity protection in your state, because that would help your case. And if anything happens at work right after you come out and you document it, you could have a lawsuit on your hands. But also, it's good to check that the protections are for every single type of job, not because some states say they have protections for gender identity, but that only applies to jobs at a federal level, that is government jobs, like airports. And even if your state does not have those protections, not all is lost, because it's still at the discretion of your employer whether or not to fire you for being transgender. It's just an option that's out there. Who knows, like your employer might turn out to be really cool about it, and they'll even offer you support should anybody be disrespectful at work with you. Like a coworker might be misgendering you on purpose or just giving you a bad time. But like I said, it's not always the case, so it's good to check up on your state laws before coming out and figuring out what to do, or whether or not like coming out is worth probably losing your source of income, or possibly moving out to another state that has those protections and you could work towards that. But in the meantime, you might have to be stealth and unfortunately present in a way that is very uncomfortable for you, but you have to do it for the sake of putting food on the table and paying your bills and basically paying your rent, mortgage, and whatnot. Anyways, I hope this video helps. Good luck on coming out at work. I'm sure it's going to be great, but please be careful, because I really don't want you guys to lose your jobs. Please subscribe if you haven't. I put out a video every Wednesday and Saturday. There's going to be a new video next week. I'm going to be talking about coming out at school, which should be fun. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I'll get to it as soon as possible. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see y'all real soon.